going to embark on a phenomenal project, not another project. It's all for me because I've really wanted to always get to truly know the Beethoven sonatas. There are so many movements in the so-called Immortal 32. Yes?
I have no questions.
No questions.
I don't know exactly where we would start this sort of thing.
With the
Everyone
first
knows
sonata.
Beethoven. Yes, well.
Well, he composed piano sonatas throughout his career. The piano was his confidant, and the sonata form itself was his goal. And perhaps we have, through these piano sonatas, one of the great spiritual developments of any composer in history. Beethoven's first three piano sonatas, Opus 2, were composed probably from 1793 and published in 1796. He was very careful with these works, and they're dedicated to Haydn, who Beethoven studied with, though did not get along with in every way, but certainly admired Haydn and was indebted to him, in fact, more than we can say, perhaps more than he was indebted to Mozart himself.
Well, he studied with Haydn. That, I'm sure, or I would guess, was in the realm of instrumental music and so on, in orchestras, pieces.
Composition per se, yes.
What about his other teachers?
Well, he had other teachers, Salieri and so forth, but Beethoven is basically self-taught, and from 1796, starting with his Opus 2, let's go through the opus numbers, because it shows that he's always occupied with the piano sonata. He starts with, if I can remember them all, Opus 2, and there are 3 examples. And then there's Opus 7, a gigantic sonata in E-flat, not well known, and one of the greatest of his earliest works. And there are 3 sonatas, Opus 10, number 1, 2, and 3, C minor, F major, and the third one in D major. Then we come to 1799 approximately, and we have one of the sublime early works and one of the most popular sonatas, the Sonata Pathétique, and that's Opus 13 in C minor. We then have a space of time and go to Opus 22 in B flat major, and then there's Opus 26 with its Funeral March. Then there's Opus 27, 1 and 2, and one of these, the famous Moonlight. Then Opus 31, 1, 2, and 3. The second one is the celebrated Tempest Sonata. Then there's a time span from Opus 31 until Opus 49, 1 and 2. And these are small sonatas, probably composed much earlier than the Opus 49 opus number. Then we come to the sublime works of his middle period, Opus 53, the Waldstein, then a little two-movement one in F major, unique sonata in F, Opus 54, then the Appassionata, Opus 57.
All of these are around the Rasimovsky Quartet.
Right,
yes.
Exactly. And then from Opus 57, we have a layover until we get to the little sonata in G, Opus 79. Oh, there's one in Opus 78, a marvelous two-movement sonata in F sharp. Then there's Opus 81A, the so-called Farewell Sonata. And then we come into the late period with Opus 90, a very curious work, which Schnabel said he never could figure out how to end the second movement, which is the finale. Then we come to the celebrated last 5 sonatas, Opus 101, enigmatic with its crazy, weird march. Then Opus 106, the Hammer Klavier, just meaning the German title of keyboard. Actually, he used that title for all of his last works. The 106 was to be his 9th symphony in the piano sonata realm. It was to be his greatest work, and it is probably one of the most difficult pieces ever composed for the piano, and its time scale is around 45 minutes. Then Opus 109, Opus 110, then the last sonata, Opus 111. And with that, he is ended his journey of the 32 sonatas. He leaves the piano sonata He's not at all interested in the piano again until the Opus 120, the Diabelli Variations, and his last works for piano, coinciding with his great cycle of late string quartets, are those tiny but perfect little specimens called bagatelles. So there is his sonata career in brief, and Opus 2 is 3 sonatas. We'll begin with that work, of course, in F minor, number 1. It opens with, rather a cliche, and it's an upward motion tune, something like the Mannheim rocket themes of the early symphonists, and most famous example of that kind of theme is in the Mozart G minor symphony. Beethoven uses it and makes a first movement already in the key of F minor, in such a terse way that we're already aware that this is a composer of tremendous dramatic qualities. The F minor sonata is already a work that you know is 19th century in concept. It's even though composed in 1796, you can't see Beethoven with a wig, so to speak, as you can Haydn. Let's begin this tremendous cavalcade of recordings you've brought in here with the late Wilhelm Bachhaus, who all his life concentrated very much on Beethoven's music. Wilhelm Bachhaus in a sterling performance, I can use that word, I think. Bauhaus's Sphere. One can hear all of the compositional development of the work, very, very carefully proclaimed. It's not to my taste. And yet, Bauhaus has something to say, as anyone who plays Beethoven is certainly out to say something, because the music says something. As Schnabel said, it's music that is greater than any performer can play it. And that was the first movement, and in this cycle we'll be going through all of the movements of the sonatas in comparative performances. The next artist is the late Walter Gieseking. Well, Gieseking was just not a Ravel and Debussy player, naturally, and you can hear the velvet sound even in this very classically oriented Beethoven Opus 2 number 1. Tell the audience what performances we have coming up in this long-range project that will take 3 years.
Apparently it will. The ones I'm looking at, let's see, we have Gieseking for the early sonatas, then we have Paul Badura-Skota, Jörg Demus, and a gentleman named Riefling.
Yes, Robert.
Then Bruce Hungerford, Daniel Barenboim, Claudio Arrau, Schnabel, Kempf.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Frank is coming tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be some Horowitz, I
He's
think.
coming
recording.
here?
I mean, the discs are
Right.
coming. And let's see, who else have we got? I don't know, I've lost track of all this, David.
Oh, and
They're just piled up.
yeah, it's wonderful. I'm happy today for a change. Well, let's have another performance, this time by the Australian-born artist Bruce Hungerford, also known for his Beethoven playing. Fantastic performance, without a doubt my favorite thus far. Bruce Hungerford, the pianist, and that's a Vanguard recording. Truly into a emotional drama in F minor, don't you think so, Matt?
Pretty much. I'm still waiting to hear all the others before I decide.
Before you put your vote in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that is tremendous playing. Terse, dynamically full of fire, and yet so compact. He never overdoes anything, and yet all the drama is there. Let's, remember that there was a vast journey of 30 years from this sonata to the end, and yet this is a complete masterpiece, already Opus 2 number 1. Who do we have now?
This is Paul Badura-Skoda.
Okay, Badura-Skoda. Wadera Skoda in the F minor sonata, first movement, Opus 2, number 1, and not nearly what Hungerford does with it. Hungerford makes a miniature drama, but Skoda is not exactly sure of his concept. Remember that everything I say is just merely my humble opinion, Matt. I know you're a great admirer of Skoda. Now let's hear Arthur Schnabel, probably the most famous interpreter of Beethoven since Hans van Bülow. Who was Hans van Bülow? A 19th century interpreter of Beethoven. That concludes our first movement of Opus 2, number 1, with Schnabel. And this, of course, was one of the great recording projects in history when it was undertaken in the 1930s. And some things have gone down in price, Matt, because these were, in all those 78s, my goodness, how many albums would you think?
Well, let's say 5 78s per LP, and there are, 13 LPs, have been 65 or so 78s?
Well, they were hundreds of dollars, and today on the Seraphim label, if it's still in print...
It is.
Are you sure?
Don't ask me that. I think it is.
Okay, you can get the for $25 all 32 sonatas, something like that. So, and of course, you don't have to change every 4 minutes. So there are certain things that have gotten better. The LP recording and its price. Schnabel played that fast, and of course he is so venerated that anyone dare say anything against Schnabel's Beethoven is committing sacrilege. However, he is up against some pianists now who have had his tradition to think about, as well as their own career thinking of Beethoven, and Schnabel might not, I don't know yet, come out as great as the image. That didn't please me at all, the Opus 2 number 1, a very erratic playing and much too fast. Let's now go to the slow movement, an adagio